If you're feeling triggered by watching any of my videos, please know you have all the permission in the universe just to turn it off and not watch anymore. Thank you. Hello, my name is Gregory, and I am the published author of the book Little Sweethearts: How I Was Groomed, Raped, and Abused by a Teacher I Trusted. I'm also a public speaker, and I speak on grooming and the cycle of narcissistic abuse, which really goes hand in hand, and how it happens that our children and vulnerable adults get not only groomed, but then sexually abused, raped, and other things. I give these talks all over the place, but I've decided I really need to go out onto YouTube or TikTok or Instagram and talk to a larger audience. My book is really more my personal story. It's less about, it does have a lot of information in it. It's less targeted specifically to prevention. This workshop is specific to prevention. I do want to say that this is, I consider public domain. If there's anything that you're seeing in any of my video takes that you can use in your organization to explain to teachers or to train people or to help anybody understand, just use it. Just take it and use it. Because I think the more of us that are trained to understand, the more we can identify a predator or a vulnerable child, the more likely we are to have organizations that are safe. So what we'll be discussing today is grooming, what that really means, what it looks like, how it is for the child, how it can take place, how parents often don't see it happening right under their noses, and also the cycle of the narcissistic abuse, because most of these men who are predators, and it can sometimes be women, but I'm going to use the term men because statistically it is mostly men. They also are grooming the parents because they really need the parents' trust or the grandparents' trust or their coworkers' trust. They need to gain trust in order to get your child or your vulnerable person alone so that they can do what they want to do. So we really want to understand grooming, understand what this predator looks like, how they can hide in plain sight, but there are tells, there are things, once we know, we can see. And this is how you, as a trusted person, are going to keep your organization safe and your little one safe. So I often give this talk to churches, to organizations, to different places. The last place I was at was Livingston County in New York, so I'm just going to use the numbers there. In Livingston County, New York, there was 147 registered sex offenders. In New York State, there was an additional 2,369 incarcerated sex offenders. There was 4,446 who couldn't be located because their addresses were unmappable or they were believed to be transient. This was higher than the national average. So out of all these people that we know about that were sex offenders in New York State and in that particular county, how many of them were forcible rape, which is a different statistic because that's under violent crimes? 0. 0 were forcible rape. And that's because often sex offense is perpetrated by someone you know. So, or it could also be a sex offense which is done on the internet, pornography, child pornography, something like that. So forcible rape, sometimes people think, oh, they got raped, a guy jumped out of an alley and they had a knife and they were held at, gunpoint, and really uncommon to have that kind of rape perpetrated. Way more common that this is going to be somebody you know. And way, way, way more common that this is going to be somebody you know, somebody that's cultivated a relationship, and somebody you trust, especially when you're talking about a little kid. We hear it all the time. Organizations, it's a soccer coach, it's a clergy member. In my case, it was a dance teacher. So we're going to do a little video series. These are broken out. Watch them as you want to. I'm going to lay out the whole cycle, exactly what grooming looks like. I do use my personal story because I find it's a good example. I like to give quick and easy, understandable examples. I think when we can keep organizations safe, making sure there's no opportunity to have it happen on our watch, it will push these predators into riskier and riskier places because they're going to want to get what they want, which is to perpetrate against young children. They're not going to stop what they want to do. So if we can push them into riskier places, they will get arrested. We will find them on background checks. Understanding grooming and the predators. So I'm hopefully showing a little picture in the back. This is a rap sheet. In my book, I talk about the predator being called a wolf. So the book is written for kids that are like 14 and older. I try to be as least graphic as I possibly can. So I just use the term the wolf. This person that we're throwing up on the screen, this is my particular wolf. If you look at his rap sheet, of course he's older in this picture here, but I want you to look way down at the bottom. It shows him being a level 3 sex offender. And I want to really highlight, what does that mean? Level 1, level 2, level 3. So level 1 sex offender, that means they are not very likely to offend again. This can be somebody who maybe has offended their own child. The opportunity was there, the child was in their house, they're not likely to go seeking another child or seeking a stranger's child. Level 1 sex offense. Level 2, moderately likely to offend again. Level 3 means very likely to offend again. These are the kind of guys that are going to infiltrate organizations. They want to get close to children. They are going to be doing this long-term game of grooming. They're good at it. They've, modified their techniques since they were a young age, not likely to get caught. They don't send off your creepy vibe. These guys are seen as family men. They often have wives or girlfriends. They might have their own families. So looking at the rap sheet of my wolf, he was arrested in 1994. He did go to jail. And he was labeled a sex offender at that point, level 3 sex offender. When he got out of jail, he, as part of his parole, was not allowed to be around children or to teach dance to children. He skirted that, found a way to have a dance studio again and become a dance teacher again. Kind of fell through the cracks on that one, and you'll see he was arrested again in 2006 for having non-consensual sex with a minor under the age of 17. Again, he was convicted, level 3 sex offender, and then he moved to Florida. So he left New York, moved to Florida, and maybe if he tried to get into another organization at that point, he would have shown up on a background check. But since he liked to start his own studios, unless a parent specifically tried to background check him, he would have slipped through the cracks again. If your organization runs background checks, great, good, I'm glad you're doing something. But these guys are so good at what they do, they will likely not have been caught. And they could be passing background checks for a long time, if not their whole lives. So we are going to talk in a later video what to look for and what else you can do to keep the young people in your care safe. When we talk about not only grooming, but what does that grooming look like and what you can do about it, and then what are other things you can do to keep your organization safe. We've got to put in some layers of protection. This entire thing is about prevention. We want to prevent this from even happening. We want to keep our little sweethearts safe. So as we move on, look at him. He's young. He's 17 years old, and he was already perpetrating. I'm right next to him. You can see me. He was my dance teacher. I was 12. He was 17. Many people think that these guys are creepy men. They're not. He was just a little bit older than me. It's good to understand there only needs to be a power differential in place. The person perpetrating does need to have a power differential of some kind, but it can be small. If your church has a youth group, maybe the youth leader is only a year older than some of the students that they're teaching. Some sort of power differential does need to be in place for grooming to happen. It could be the priest and the youth. That would be a huge power differential. And I will say in churches, you need to be particularly careful, because a Sunday school teacher or a youth leader in a church or a clergy member, not only do they have a power differential of their position, but they are also aligned with God, which is much harder and much easier to have perpetrating happen, and is particularly sad for me. But a power differential will need to be in place. So even though he was only a couple years older than me, that power differential was there. He was my teacher. I wanted to please him. And he used that little bit of power differential to turn the tables on me and to end up grooming me with that and eventually to end up hurting me with that. So part of grooming, there does need to be a power differential in place. Even if the perpetrator is just a year old or a little bit older, that power differential will be there. So going on, look at me, look how young I was. I was so little, I was 12. This picture that you're looking at here, this is 2 weeks after the first time I was raped. I turned 13. This is my 13th birthday. This is 2 weeks after the first time I was raped. Look how little I was, just a little kid. The title of my book is Little Sweethearts, because these are just good kids, and there's a reason. So the victims, the children, also fit a profile. These are good kids. These kids are over-compliant. They're eager to please. They're needing attention. They're seeking approval. They're really naive. Often they have a beloved pet. We're going to talk about that one later. Usually there's no father at home. Basically, they're just good kids. You know these kids. These are the kids that stay after school. Can I help you clean the blackboard? Can I beat out the erasers? They want help. They're easily tricked. They're easily manipulated. Predators see these kids coming a mile away. And there's a reason they target these kids. The reason is, 1, they can trick them and manipulate them. 2, these kids probably have some holes in their upbringing. They soak up the extra attention. And they know that at one point they're going to be able to turn the table on these kids, and these kids will not go for help. They will let the abuse happen. They will feel like the abuse is their fault, and they won't tattle. They won't ever tattle. So the little kids also fit a profile, and that's important to know. It's important to understand, because when you're looking around your organization, not only are you going to be looking for men or possibly women, I don't want to exclude that. You're going to look for men who might be doing some behaviors, which we're going to get into in detail, that are like, that's kind of ringing a bell for me now that I know. But you're going to be looking around at some of those vulnerable kids, and you're going to say, ooh, that kid would be one that is soaking up a lot of attention, seeking approval all the time. Pick me, can I help? But really, I titled my book Little Sweethearts because they're just good kids. They're just good kids, and they just need attention, and they get singled out, and they get hurt because of that. It's really important to understand the children also fit a profile. Unfortunately, some little sweethearts have been targeted by a trusted adult, and now they've been introduced to sex before they are ready. And this kind of abuse by a trusted adult uses a technique called grooming. Understanding grooming and what is grooming is so important to how this happens, and it happens right under our noses. But once you know about it, there's something you can do about it. It's not feasible to ask a 10-year-old to protect themselves. It's going to take a trusted adult like you to step in on behalf of a child. I hope you stay with me for the next video.